Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Alive with Sally Goodwin, and I am 3 minutes late or 4 minutes late, depending on the timepiece that you are using. I'm so sorry. So sorry about that. Sincere apologies, but it is a beautiful Tuesday morning, and it is the reason that I was late. Well, not the whole entire reason that I was late, but one of the reasons that I was late is that I was trying to figure out my earrings. And the one earring fell apart and the other earring wouldn't work. Good morning, Candace. Lovely to see you. And the other earring I couldn't get to work, and then I couldn't get it in. And it seems to me that today is the day where earrings are not going to work for me. It's just, can we leave the earrings today? Otherwise, I'm going to be here all day long. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, beautiful. Lovely to see you. Welcome to Arise with Sally Goodwin on this beautiful Tuesday morning. And it is a very exciting time in the Jewish calendar, because at sunset tomorrow evening, so not this evening, but at sunset tomorrow evening, Purim begins. Hold on. Sorry about that. So tomorrow evening at sunset, Purim begins, and we all know that Purim is the feast of Esther, and that is why we are studying Esther at the moment. I feel like I'm very on top of all of you. Just want to move you away a little bit. Hello, Stu. Yeah, there we go. Is that a little bit better? Okay, right. So thank you. Candace blessed me because I had a little bit of a sneezing fit. I'm not sure why. Anyway, so tomorrow during the day, most Jewish people, or the Jewish people who, Orthodox Jewish people who are serious about their Judaism, they fast. So tomorrow, most of the Jewish people that will fast. Good morning, Ethne. Lovely to see you. Most of the Jewish people will fast, and then they will go into Purim at sunset tomorrow evening. And Purim is pretty much, it's a celebration. So they celebrate from sunset tomorrow evening. They celebrate right through until sunset on Thursday evening. And it's basically to celebrate the story of Esther, to celebrate the deliverance of the Jews, etc., etc. They don't seem to have too many. They have, the book of Esther is written in the synagogue. Okay, just give me a moment, because clearly I need to either wake up again or shake off the effects of, probably shake off the effects of some of the meds that I'm on. That's probably it. Yeah. Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Arise with Sally Goodwin on this beautiful Tuesday morning, where we are going to be learning more about the story of Esther. And tomorrow, being Wednesday, being the 13th of Adar. Good morning, Bridget. The Jewish people will fast, and then at sunset tomorrow evening, they will start the Feast of Purim, which will run right through Thursday, the 14th of Adar, until sunset. And it is a feast. It is a celebration. The book of Esther is read in the synagogue. So the story of Esther is read in the synagogue. It's a holiday for the Jewish people. It's a celebration for the Jewish people. And they also eat, and I tried to figure out the pronunciation of the name of the foods that they eat over Purim, but I couldn't get to it. It's quite a long name. But it basically, apparently Haman used to wear a three-cornered hat, a tri-cornered hat. And so these little pastries are baked, these tri-cornered pastries are baked in commemoration of the hat that Haman used to wear. And so the Jewish people just celebrate when the story of Esther is read out. Every time Haman's name is mentioned, there is shouting and noise, and they shake like those, those rattle thingies that you have when you're a child. They shake those and make a big noise every time Haman's name is mentioned. So it's a big celebration for them. Purim is a big celebration for them, and because it is a celebration of the salvation, of the deliverance of the Jewish nation from the plans of the enemy, the plans of the evil one back then. So we are going to continue this morning with the story of Esther and have a look at a little bit further. Just before we go on, for those of you who've been messaging me and asking me how I am and how I'm doing, etc., etc., etc. For those of you who don't know, the doctors have found an anomaly in my bloodstream, and I have been put onto chemotherapy, oral chemotherapy, for 3 months to see whether this will sort whatever the problem is. It's apparently a very rare anomaly, and so nobody really knows what to do. They're just going to kill everything, and hopefully it will kill that as well. But you know, the story of Esther is the story of surrender, basically. I mean, that is what Esther is about, right? It's the story of surrender. It is the story of Esther surrendering her life to save her people without knowing at the time that it happened, because I've said to you before that we know the time, we know the story, we go and we read the whole story. The people who lived within the story, who were taking part in the actual events that took place day by day, they did not know how the story was going to end. They were just doing what God had called them to do, but they did not know how the story was actually going to end. So we've reached the point somewhere around the end of Esther chapter 4, when we have, Mordecai has heard about the copy of the decree that all the Jewish people, that Haman has decided the Jewish people are going to be wiped out, basically. Mordecai has heard about it. He has sat at the king's gate in sackcloth and ashes. Esther has sent someone to ask him what is wrong. Why is he, sitting in sackcloth and ashes? Because she did not know. And he has then told them the story, and he has said to her that she has to go to the king and she has to plead. She has to plead. She has to remonstrate and speak to the king about this, what is going on here. And so the messenger that Esther had sent to Mordecai does this. He goes to Esther, and he gives her Mordecai's answer. And he says, this is what Mordecai says. And then Esther sends him back. Esther sends the messenger back to Mordecai, and she says to him, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that any person, be it man or woman, who shall go into the inner court to the king without being called shall be put to death. There is but one law for him, except him to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come to the king for these 30 days. So Esther had not seen the king for a month. Remember, the king had an enormous harem. He had a whole lot of concubines. he didn't specifically require a wife to perform wifely duties. He had numerous women that he could choose from. He was also, King Xerxes was a king of war. He liked going to war. He was constantly going to war. He was constantly planning the next war and, seeing it, looking at his armies and checking out his fleets and making sure what was happening there. And so he was a busy, and he was a king. He had state things and to deal with. So it wasn't that he just hadn't bothered, but he hadn't seen her for 30 days. And this is what Mordecai's answer to her was. And we get very caught up on the such a time as this thing, but I want you to listen carefully to this, to what it says in the word here. Then Mordecai told them, these are the messengers, to return this answer to Esther. Do not flatter yourself that you shall escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. That's quite harsh, hey? Do not flatter yourself that you shall escape in the king's palace any more than the other Jews. In other words, if there had been any thought in Esther's head, and the Bible doesn't say there was, but if there had been any thought in Esther's head that this could happen, but she wouldn't be affected by it, but because she was queen, Mordecai is saying to her, do not flatter yourself. If the Jews get destroyed, God will make sure you're a Jew. You will be part of that. Do not flatter yourself that you are so special that you will not be affected by these events. And that is a harsh message. It is a harsh word to say. And then he goes on to say, for if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance shall arise for the Jews from elsewhere, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows but that you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this, and for this very occasion. What is Mordecai saying to Esther? He's saying, do not flatter yourself that this won't affect you. Do not flatter yourself that you'll survive because you're queen, while the rest of the Jews get wiped out. In fact, God will deliver the Jewish people. One way or another, he will deliver the Jewish people. And if you're not a part of it, you and your father's house will perish. And I think sometimes for us, that is the hard part. I think that sometimes we struggle to see the hard parts in God, you know? The world is in this crazy state at the moment. All these things are happening. These you know, the Ukraine, Russia, our brothers and sisters, our fellow believers, the people who bear our hearts, who are connected with our spirits because they believe in Jesus Christ of Nazareth. They are going through the most terrible times. And I preached a sermon on Sunday at my church that I'll release tomorrow. But basically what I said was, the one thing is that I don't understand why Christians are always so quick to race down conspiracy theory rabbit holes. I don't get that. Why Christians are always the first to, if a conspiracy theory rabbit hole kind of raises its head, then Christians kind of go straight down that thing, and and I'm not saying that they aren't, where there's smoke, there's fire, but what I'm saying is we are looking at a story here with Russia and the Ukraine. Let's just use them as an example. There is no hero. There is no villain. There are people who are suffering. There are people who are suffering. They are the people who we should be worried about, who our thoughts should be knitted to. What Mordecai was saying to Esther is, your life is a life of surrender. Whatever happens, the outcome of this is actually not even yours to worry about. But what if it is that God placed you in this place at this time to do this? You know, on Sunday morning, the church community that I'm a part of, they did the most incredible thing. And during worship, they washed my feet. And I didn't know anything about it. I was completely taken by surprise. I was preaching, and that was what was on my mind. And they all knew that if they told me what they were going to do, I probably wouldn't have come. And they sat me in the front, and while worship was going on, they washed my feet. And they washed my feet to honor me for various of them, what I've brought into their lives, or my standpoint for women as a prophet in our house, in the church. And then also, obviously, for healing, because they are standing with me and they are believing for healing for me. And as this happened, it took a little while. I had a conversation with Jesus, and it was as if him and I were sitting on a bench, and we were overlooking the kingdoms of the earth. It was like we were sitting on a bench on the top of this really, really, really high mountain, and we were overlooking the kingdoms of the earth. And Jesus said to me, you know I can heal you. I said, yes, I know. I know you can heal me right now, immediately. I know I could stand up off this chair and be 100% healed. And then he said to me, if you had known right from the beginning what this road was going to look like, what this walk was going to look like, if you had known right from the start, would you still have said yes to me? And I had to think about that for a little while. Those of you who know me well, you know my heart burns for Jesus. But would I have said yes? Would I have said yes to this disease, to these drugs, to these things that my life is filled with at the moment? And I said, yes, Lord. I would still have said yes. You are my one and only. I would still have said yes. And he said to me, and if I told you now that I'm never going to heal you, this side of heaven, this side of eternity, is your answer still yes? And I thought about that. Because, you know, you don't just answer these questions with Jesus. You don't just give him an off-pat answer, just, oh, yes, Lord, oh, yeah. You know, like he's examining your heart at the same time. He wants to know that the words that are coming out your mouth are the words that are coming out your heart. So he said, if I never heal you, would you still say yes? I said, yes. I would still say yes. And then he said to me, if this disease if what you're going through brings your boys closer to me, would you say yes to it? I said to him, Jesus, you know that I would lay my life down for you, and I would lay my life down for my boys. And if this means that they will draw closer to you, I will say yes. And then he said to me, if this disease means that just one person somewhere on the earth hears your testimony and comes home to me, will you say yes? Even if it isn't your boys, if it isn't your family. And I said, yes, I will still say yes. And he said to me, do you realize that I am asking you to lay your life down for me? He says, I didn't give you this disease. I'm not the author of this disease. I'm not the one who wants you to have this disease. But if I have allowed this to happen to you so that my will can be done, and you are saying yes to me, then you are laying your life down for me. Do you understand that that's what I'm asking? And I said to him, Jesus, how could I not lay down my life for the one who laid his life down for me? How could I not? How could I say no? How could I say, I need to think about it? How could I not say, yes, in the same way you lay your life down for me is the same way that I surrender to you? I'm not telling you this. I get very emotional about it, obviously, and I got very emotional on Sunday. What I'm saying to you is this: there is no other way but to surrender, because there is no other being or person more worthy of surrender than Jesus. And if Esther could put her life on the line for the Jewish people, if Esther could put her life on the line for a whole nation, how much more can we not be required or expected or asked to put our lives on the line for people, for nations, for people groups? How do we not wail and travail before the Lord for the people of the Ukraine and the people of Russia? How do we not feel their pain, experience their anxiety? How do we not? I know that we're talking about the Old Testament with Esther, and I know that Jesus had not yet come as the Savior of the Jews. But Esther's response to Mordecai's harsh words to her were, go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan and fast for me, and neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. I also and my maids will fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. What happens here? A situation arises. Esther finds out about it. Esther says to Mordecai, there's nothing I can do. I haven't even seen the king for a month. Mordecai said, and Mordecai, just let's remember one thing. Mordecai raised Esther. He loved her. She was like his daughter. She had no parents. She had Mordecai. He raised her as his daughter. He loved her. And yet he said to her, do not flatter yourself and think that you will be spared. Because one way or another, God will deliver Israel. And if you do not play your part, you and your father's house will perish. Because maybe, just maybe, you were put in this very position for this very moment. And Esther's reply to that harsh word was, if I perish, I perish. I will go to the king. I take my life in my hands. But if I perish, I perish. And we know that she went before the king and she gained favor. We focus a lot on Esther in the book because Esther is the queen who ultimately took the risk. But as I said before, we forget about Vashti, who also needed to be mentioned, and we've done a teaching on her. But also, we need to remember Mordecai. Because do you know that there are a lot of us who need Mordecais in our lives. And we don't want them. Because the Mordecais are the ones who say to us, you can do better than this. You can be better than this. Maybe this is more than you're supposed to do. Maybe this is more, we all need Mordecais in our lives. It doesn't have to be a man. But we need people with Mordecai anointings that can call out the destinies and the call-ins on our lives, and that can hold us to a higher standard. We need Mordecais in our lives that can say to us, that is not God's best for you. Don't flatter yourself that is okay with God. Because it isn't. We need Mordecais in our lives to see where God wants to take us and to help us reach those heights. We need Mordecais in our lives to point out the sacrifices we need to make to get to where God wants us to be. We need Mordecais in our lives to reprove us, to chastise us, to discipline us, to say to us, who do you think you are, when we're getting a little bit out of hand. Esther was queen. She'd been chosen out of hundreds of women. She'd taken Vashti's place. The crown had been placed on her head. She was saying, I don't think this will affect me. I could possibly get away, without this actually bothering me or anything. I'm not saying she did think that, and possibly she didn't think that at all. But I'm saying that there is that possibility, that the thought crossed her mind, that where she sits in her palace, she will be unaffected by the drama and the terror and the sorrow and the persecution that is going to happen outside of those palace walls. And I think sometimes we sit in our palaces and we think that we can be unaffected by the pain and the sorrow and the desperate need of the people who are outside of our palace walls. Or we think to ourselves that the Ukraine is very far from South Africa, and so is Russia. So really, is it going to affect us? The balance of power in the world is shifting. And it will never be the way it was before. No matter if America managed to stop Russia, no matter how this ends, something has happened here that has shifted the balance of power in this world forever. We no longer have one big superpower over here that we can all rely on to keep the peace in the whole entire earth. No, there are now people raising their heads saying, hang on a second, actually, you know what? I can get in. None of us know when it's going to affect us. None of us know that. But times are changing. Seasons are shifting. God is moving, and we need to be moving with him. And if that means that we have to surrender our lives for him, be it physically, be it spiritually, however he asks for it, then our answer right now needs to be yes. If you want to be part of what God does on the earth between now and the end, whenever the end comes, then your answer needs to be yes, Lord. No matter what it looks like, Lord, yes, yes, yes. Not I'll think about it. Understand something. It's not that I don't complain about this disease to the Lord, because I do. It's not that I don't have moments. It's not that I don't have moments when the pain is intense and the exhaustion is overwhelming, that I say, Jesus, anytime now, please, you can heal me anytime now. But I will not stop what God has called me to do. I have had people that I love, and they love me. And this is why they say these things, and they say to me, maybe don't worry about doing that. Maybe at this time in your life, just concentrate on getting well. Focus on getting better. And believe you me, if that's what God told me to do, I would do that tomorrow. But I have said to them, and I will continue to say, I refuse to allow the enemy to steal from me. I refuse to allow the enemy to steal from me through this disease. I will not stop what God has called me to do until God himself tells me to stop. I don't want it, the disease. I don't embrace it. I have moments where I am very scared because I don't know what it is, and neither does anybody else seem to. But I will not back down. I will not back down. I will be like Esther, and I will say, no matter what it takes, Lord, I will do what you have asked me to do, and if I perish, I perish. And what I would like for every single one of you to do is I would like to ask that each one of you, between now and Thursday, on Thursday we'll finish the story of Esther and all the amazing things that happened to save the Jewish people once again. The Jewish people are pouring into the Ukraine. The Ukrainian Jewish people are pouring into Israel. Remember, don't focus on the Ukraine and Russia. Pray for them. Focus on Israel. Focus on Israel. That's God's barometer. That's God's time clock, is Israel. But pray for our fellow believers in Russia and the Ukraine. But between now and Thursday, for each one of you, I want you to sit before the Lord and let Him bring scenarios in front of you and let Him ask you, do you say yes? Is your answer yes, no matter what? Just like Esther. Just like me. And I take note. I don't expect any applause for that. The road ahead of me is a hard one. I don't even know actually where it's going because I don't even know what's actually wrong with me. But that is not the point. I have said yes to Jesus. And I will continue to say yes to Jesus every single day, every single moment, every single hour until I draw my last breath on this earth and step into eternity. And my prayer for you today, my blessing for you today, is that you would be able to say yes to Jesus. My decree over you today is that fire in your belly will not be put out by a single thing, that no matter what the world throws at you, that no matter what the enemy throws at you, that no matter what happens in your life, your yes to Jesus will remain a resounding yes. It's okay if sometimes it's a weak yes. As long as it's never a yes, but. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Because who would not lay down their life for the one who laid his life down for us? So ladies, this morning took a little bit of a different direction to what I was originally anticipating. But on Thursday morning at 7 a.m. we will complete the story of Esther. And then we will enjoy Purim on Thursday until sunset on Thursday evening. I love each and every one of you. And I'm excited for the yeses that are going to come forth from each and every one of you. Bless you. Have a fabulous Tuesday. And I'll see you on Thursday at 7. Love you. Bye.